the lunch break on day 8 of the Undercover Policing Inquiry, Tranche 3, Phase 1. We've, second session in the morning, we've been hearing from L3, who was an active member of Croydon Hunt Saboteurs when it was being targeted by the undercover officer James Thomson. He's being questioned today. I mean, the big issue is his trip to France, but we haven't got to that yet. He's been questioned so far about his role within Croydon Hunt Saboteurs and some incidents that, particularly the driving over of L4. I'm joined by Eveline Lubbers of the Undercover Research Group. Eveline, what have you made of the evidence so far from L3?
Well, he's not nervous at all. He's a hunt sap and an animal rights activist, and he still believes in that. And he has very detailed accounts of how the hunters would attack saps if they and that the violence would always come from them, and how they would, how the hunters would have all kind of stuff in their cars that they could use as a weapon, while the saps would pick up a stick if need be, if they would be attacked by hunters. And he kind of explained what sabbing entailed, trying to disturb the hunts by trying to find out where the hunters went, following cars, and using scented stuff to sort of mislead the dogs and free the foxes. And he's very convincing about that was what he did. He started with flyering and tables on high streets, then moved abroad for a couple of years and came back and became back to be a member of the Croydon Hunt Saboteurs, which at that time, consisted of James Thomson, Wendy and Ellie, Sarah.
Yeah, so it didn't include Ellie. Ellie wasn't a member of Croydon Hunt Saboteurs. She wasn't an animal rights activist at all. Yeah, it's been quite a well-worn sort of thing at this inquiry. We've heard a lot about the use of citronella, what it's like to be a hunt sab. I find it quite strange that the inquiry is still asking hunt sab activists what it's like to sabotage a hunt. I mean, I would felt that they would have established that by now. I mean, I think everybody, who's likely to be watching this is fully aware of what hunt sabbing is and how it operates. The inquiry has asked, there's got to be at least a dozen witnesses on what hunt sabbing is. It continues to do so.
Yeah, today, of course, it's in the context of what had happened. That L4 almost died because he's driven over by a hunt's car.
Yeah, so this is a very famous incident of 1st of September 2000, the old Burstow and Surrey hunt. People may be aware of it. Just to say, there is a restriction order on the names of those people. I would imagine most people who are aware of hunt sabbing will know the names of the people who involved in that, and L4, as we must refer to him, who was nearly killed. I mean, it was genuinely touch and go. He was repeatedly run over by a hunter who also we're not allowed to name. That's referred to as L5. Again, very well-known name, easily Googleable. But he repeatedly ran over the L4 and reversed back over him in his Land Rover. We saw the report by James Thomson of that incident. He immediately pivots the report to say that there's plans for reprisals by the hunt sabs. This is something that L3 disputed. There was a response from the hunt saboteurs the next day. There was a well-known now protest at the old Burstow kennels, which resulted in a significant public order incident, which I feel L3 played down a little bit, which resulted because of the alerting by James Thomson. It meant that there was a lot of CCTV footage of what happened there and on the way there that resulted in a large number of after-the-fact arrests, which was kind of new for the time. I mean, we weren't seeing a lot of that, and really the old Burstow Kennels incident was kind of a bit of a turning point for that. Over the weeks and months ahead, people were getting picked up for their involvement in that. It was very notable that James Thomson did not attend that Kennels protest, and it was L3 was asked, was he surprised that Thomson wasn't there? And he said that's very much an understatement. He got quite emotional and actually was unable to finish his sentence, because he was saying that, people came from far and wide. I mean, it's quite. I mean, I know a lot of people who attended that protest. I'm sure lots of people watching do as well. Maybe that you did yourself. It attracted people outside of the Hunt Sab movement. I mean, people did expect L4 to die. There had been 2 deaths of Hunt Sabs in the previous years. And this was such an erroneous incident. And the response of the hunt community had been was to rally around the hunter who'd done this and support him. It became a thing to make the driving wheel sort of symbol at Sabs, which went on for quite a long period of time, particularly by the driver himself. He never faced any sort of justice. But yeah, what did you make of what was said around all that?
There's clearly a build-up, because what we are going to talk about later is Operation Line, is something that probably James Thomson has made up himself. It relates to a holiday, a wine drinking trip basically to France by car, which James Thomson claims was intended to arrange a gun in France and bring it back into the UK, which itself is quite stupid. If you travel, like you're being checked at the border, and it's easier to get a gun somewhere in London, I suppose, than it would be, bringing it back from France. And we now know that it's a complicated story, but we know that the gun that was used was a gun that James Thomson already had and pretended to have bought in France and having put it in a car. This is a story that all people involved refute and don't know anything about. If you hit, so that is the build-up of the questioning. It's like everybody was so angry that L4 may die, or that how seriously he was hurt, that plans were made for a really serious repercussion. But then L3 is quite clear about, there was just that next day really big demonstration, and that was it. We didn't know what to do. We didn't know whether he was going to die or not. So yeah, that makes us curious about what we're going to hear after lunch, when we fully get into that, I suppose, made-up story by James Thomson, bigging up his deployment and bigging up and sort of making it like, he had to infiltrate that group because they were so violent, but then hearing that nobody else knows anything about that plan makes you wonder.
Yeah, I mean, it really does. I mean, I think it speaks a lot to the mentality of the undercover police officer in question, particularly James Thomson, in comparison to the mentality of Hunt Sabs and animal rights activists, and the reaction that people had to, what happened to L4 was one of genuine concern, and like a sense of disillusionment and powerlessness. I mean, essentially, of that, that yes, hunters can get away with these kind of things. People were very used to, particularly in the 90s, were very used to quite extreme violence coming from the hunts, and for people who defend themselves to get arrested for doing so, and even less than getting, than defending themselves, quite frankly, arrested for the crime of getting beaten up wasn't uncommon. Animal rights activists see the world in a and I think all vegans see the world in a very different way, I think, to meat eaters and those who hunt. And the abuse and systemic murder of animals is ever present. The death of L4, the possible death of L4, was on everybody's mind as this could have, this is how horrific. But it's kind of seen in this context of this huge amounts of death that take place every day, and it's people were very angry, but the idea that they would have then got involved in trying to shoot somebody is just totally misunderstands what the compassion that is at the heart of animal rights activism is actually all about. It takes a particular kind of psychopath to just immediately pivot when experiencing, witnessing what happened to L4, to immediately pivot to, there might be reprisals. And it says, I think, more about James Thomson than anything else, really. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, not at this moment.
No worries. Okay, we'll be back after lunch. We'll be hearing more from L3. Yeah, he's been a really good witness. He's very eloquent, very articulate. He certainly has explained himself very well. I hope he'll continue to do so this afternoon. I can't imagine it'll be a particularly long session. They said they're going to concentrate on the Operation Lime, this trip to France. I would imagine that's what we're going to get onto next. So yeah, I will do another video after that. Thanks for joining.